As Phase 5 ramps up and reveals more and more about what is to come, it is becoming increasingly clear that the world is severely underprepared and underdefended. While the various Kangs of the multiverse are the most imminent threat, we've also seen several other villains who have yet to be fully subdued, including the likes of Namor, several Celestials, Hercules, and Kingpin, all of whom are imminent threats to different corners of the Earth, as well as the Marvel Universe itself, and they are far from the only villains left in the world. This has left many to wonder about the state of the Avengers, which, as an organization, seems to have been completely disbanded, despite still constant global threats still emerging across the entire world. But why is this? And why have the Avengers not reassembled? And how could this lead to an absolutely disastrous outcome for phases 5 and 6? Well, today, watchers of the Marvel Multiverse, let's dive into exactly why the Avengers no longer exist and the impact that it has had on the world, as well as the plan that seems to be in place to eventually reform them in a different light. The primary reason why the Avengers no longer exist comes down to two primary factors, those being funding and leadership. First, let's address the issue of funding, which seems to have died with Tony Stark after the events of Endgame. While Pepper Potts currently runs Stark Industries and could provide funding for the team should she choose to, it was Tony's ingenuity and brainpower that was actually putting the funding to use. He was the architect of the Avengers Tower and the Upstate compound as well, including the Quinjets, gadgetry, and armaments that the team used throughout their many adventures and battles. After the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Winter Soldier, this responsibility was shouldered onto Tony Stark alone, who designed the suits, gear, transports, and everything else that the team used as a unit. Tony Stark was the Avengers. While Pepper could certainly fund the team, she could not customize the equipment to make the same degree that Tony would have had, and the same impact. The second factor, and maybe even more importantly, comes down to leadership, as the primary roster of the Avengers, and specifically the original 6 Avengers, is in utter shambles. The primary trinity of the Avengers team, that being Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, and Thor, are all disbanded, with Tony having met his end already, Steve living in quiet retirement, and Thor no longer on Earth. Even aside from this, Hawkeye has made it apparent that he is seeking out a life of similar retirement after Natasha's death on Vormir, leaving Bruce Banner as the only active former Avenger, lest Clint be drawn out of retirement yet again. Most of the new Avengers have yet to even make contact with the primary team, and some of them have never had interaction with any of the main 6 Avengers core at all. Kamala Khan and Shang-Chi are well removed from the team, as are Moon Knight, Photon, and Daredevil, meaning that most of these heroes don't even have a connection to the team in the first place. Now that Peter Parker has been forgotten by the world at large, this now applies to him as well. And while Shuri aided the team in Infinity War as well as Endgame, her home has been in Wakanda up until recently, when she left leadership of Wakanda in M'Baku's capable hands. While we as fans are avidly awaiting the reunification of the new Avengers, we are not the only ones to notice the Avengers' absence, which has been felt across the entire MCU as well, and seems to have had impacts on not only the most recent projects, but films and series moving forward. Primarily, the announcement of the Thunderbolts project and the next entry in Captain America franchise seems to be the most closely impacted by the absence of the Avengers, and why they have not reassembled. Recently, it has been announced that one of Sam's primary goals in Captain America 4 will actually be to reassemble a new roster of Avengers, specifically though, against the threat of President Ross, which seems to indicate that he will be at the forefront of the team's eventual reconstruction, and Sam's actions in New World Order will likely have a profound effect on the Kang Dynasty and the state of the Avengers in the film. If Sam is leading a new segment of Avengers, then they will likely be some of the first responders when Kang ultimately arrives in 616. We also have reason to believe that the Thunderbolts will be impacted by the Avengers' absence as well, and the Avengers disbanding might have actually been the reason for the Thunderbolts initiative in the first place. The governments of the world know that their primary superpowered fighting force is no longer active, potentially starting with the Thunderbolts as the US government's answer to the Avengers. Thanks to Val's dialogue with John Walker during the closing minutes of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we know that the Thunderbolts will be much more morally ambiguous than the primary Avengers team. This seems to indicate that they will be willing to take a grittier approach to this so-called heroism, acting on behalf of the government as an entity rather than serving what is right. The Thunderbolts might even invite the formation of other teams as representatives of other nations across the world. Perhaps Canada's Alpha Flight or Russia's Winter Guard will be next to make an MCU jump. We know that 2 members of the Winter Guard are actually already active in the MCU, with the first being the Red Guardian himself, who is currently on the Thunderbolts roster, and the second is a mutant by the name of Mikhail Ursus. who was first introduced in the Black Widow movie as nothing more than a fleeting cameo, with significant implications for his future involvement if this idea actually comes to fruition. As of right now, the very few plot leaks regarding the Kang Dynasty seem to give us a general idea of who might be involved in the reconstruction of the Avengers. One fan favorite rumor is that Sam Wilson and Shuri will be among the first wave of defenders against Kang, protecting Shang-Chi and his 10 rings as Kang invades. This lends evidence to the idea that Sam will be at the helm of the Avengers reconstruction, though who else might be with him in this instance remains to be seen. However, a recent report has indicated that Spider-Man will also appear as a leader of the Avengers team in Kang Dynasty, and has even been set to be the leading star in the 5th Avengers outing. So as it stands right now, it appears as if the Avengers roster could comprise of Bruce Banner's Hulk, Shuri's Black Panther, Sam Wilson's Captain America, Shang-Chi, Captain Marvel, as well as perhaps the return of Thor later down the line. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of this explanation as to why the Avengers no longer exist, and why the Avengers have not reassembled since the events of Avengers Endgame, even though this would likely be what would be best for Earth? Do you think that these are the primary factors? And if we missed something, and there are other reasons why they have not reassembled, please let us know in the comments down below. And as a final question, when do you think we will begin to see the reconstruction of the Avengers team after the effects of Endgame in the MCU proper? As always, my friends, thank you so much for watching and continuing to support the channel. Hulk smash that subscribe button to assemble and join our team, and have a great day.